What is going on, people? I'm here to ask questions today, not to necessarily give answers, because there are very many questions to be asked on the back of this Lewis Hamilton GQ article. Here's the first one. If you didn't know that Lewis Hamilton, let's redact the names. If you didn't know that they were speaking about Lewis Hamilton, a current present day driver who's still active, could you be forgiven for reading that GQ article and thinking that that sports personality, that F1 driver, were already retired because of the tone of the conversation, because of the way that that person redacted? Not Lewis Hamilton. Take Lewis Hamilton out of this equation for a second, because I want to try and make this as objective as possible. Could you be forgiven for reading that article redacted and thinking that that person, that driver, that sports personality has been retired already for a while now? And that's the bloody tone what I got from that article, I'll be honest with you. Now listen, I know, preface everything I'm about to say with this. Lewis Hamilton evangelists will call me blasphemous, and that's okay. That's okay, because we can't remove subjectivity, not completely, from this conversation. And of course, Lewis Hamilton, per the article, has fans that go hard for him, that will die for him. That anybody that comes out and speaks out about Lewis Hamilton and criticises him and suggests that he might be a little bit past his peak, not the 2007 or even 2018 Lewis. Anybody that suggests that is absolutely blaspheming, and that's fine. That's cool. But sometimes we've got to take a step back. I was just saying to my missus just now, sometimes you got to see the wood for the trees. And as I'm reading that article, and I have read it a good few times now, I'm like, is this dude trying to tell us something? Is he retired already mentally? That's the question that I'm asking. Michael Walther, what's going on? Comodera. I'm not sure. I'm genuinely not sure. This is me. Listen, this is a thought experiment. I'm thinking out loud here, spitballing massively. But the impression that I got from that article was that Lewis Hamilton, 7-time champion, GOAT settings, etc., has one foot out of the sporting arena door, and that's fine. That's okay. What do I mean when I'm talking about that? Well, for example, the way he reflects on Abu Dhabi, he talks about him being at peace with it. Now, if I'm an F1 driver, can you imagine the likes of a Max Verstappen or a Charles Leclerc in the peak prime of their career saying that they're at peace with something like Abu Dhabi? That doesn't make sense. You kind of want to get that back, right? In my mind, and everybody's different. Lewis Hamilton he's matured, and he's becoming right, or he has become who he is. So it's a bit different now. No longer is he the young, hungry lion that will kill just to get a championship. But nevertheless, as I'm looking at that, if I'm assessing whether Lewis is still in this 100%, as is a Max Verstappen or a Charles Leclerc, then I'm just like, well, I'm not sure he can be speaking like that at the age of 39. And does that mean that he still can't win a champ? Well, of course he can still win a championship. But he's viewing this thing through a different perspective now. True or false? He is, absolutely. He's told us that. I've read the article a dozen times now. Like, he's telling us that I'm at peace now with Abu Dhabi. What happened to... Do you remember when Lewis said... So this is a different Lewis that we saw post 2021. Do you remember Lewis saying, if you think you saw me at my best last year, 2021, wait till you see me next year. He was coming to take names. Toto Wolff said something similar, didn't he? The question was, have Red Bull got a target on their backs? The response from Toto was, everybody has a target on their backs. Where has that gone? Where has that fire and that get back, the hunger for revenge, where has that? It's just fugazi. It's just completely disappeared. And as I'm reading that GQ article, I'm not getting the the hungry lion Lewis Hamilton, who's going to kill and scratch for every single point, every single tenth of a second, whether that be at Mercedes or Ferrari next year. I'm not, the article doesn't scream that to me. That determination and resilience and spitefulness that Max Verstappen so epitomises, I'm not getting that from that article. It doesn't permeate. And that's not to say that Lewis Hamilton didn't used to be there with that sort of sentiment. 2007, 2008, are you kidding me? That Lewis Hamilton absolutely was a young, hungry lion each and every single time, right? Noel, let me see what you've... Noel, this is techie. This is techie. Noel says, hi Cameron, to a certain extent he has been out for a while. F1 is uncomfortable for him right now. It's not the sport he loved all these years. Going to Ferrari he might be able to recapture that. He's hoping the I'm just assessing the GQ article on its own merits, and I'm reading it. I keep reading it over and over, and I'm like, he's trying to tell us something, man. Or maybe he's not trying to tell us something, but his words, his verbiage, the manner in which he couches the subject topic, like it all just screams to me. The way in which he talks about his dad being at Abu Dhabi, that was what was important. It's a level of maturity that I'm not sure is befitting of somebody who's desperate, so desperate to win a championship that they will give their all for it. That's what I'm getting from it. And moreover, what did he spend 90% of the article talking about? Because it wasn't F1. He talked, like, there was a couple of lines about Mercedes, and then a couple of lines about moving to Ferrari and how he's optimistic and he's looking forward to the future. But the rest of it, the terms in which he was addressing his future, it was all preparing for the next stage, right? That was, I think the headline of the article was something of that ilk, preparing for the next stage. That was very early on, wasn't it? The opening paragraph. He talks about how he was talking to all these buds, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, all these sports stars who, as they were getting to like the latter stages of their career, planning for what comes next. He spends a lot of time talking about music and fashion and his label, materially much more time than he talked about F1. And what does that say? As optimistic as you want to be about Lewis winning a record-breaking 8th, what does that say in earnest? If half the article, maybe you can say that, okay, so it was the interviewer wanted to get what they want, and ultimately GQ are going to publish what they want. But you're not going to tell me that F1 talk coming out of Lewis Hamilton's mouth isn't going to sell. Like, of course it is. So the fact that he didn't even, like, you barely talked about that stuff. The lion's share of the article was fashion, music, preparing for life after F1. And that makes sense. It does make sense at this stage of his career. But holy moly, what are we saying then? What, that Lewis is already R-wording? That he's already got like 1 foot out of F1? That is bonkers. Is that what we're talking about now? Oh, the humanity. I can't cope. It's a very honest conversation though, this. As sad as it is, you've got to take the dude at his word and interpret his because these things mean something, surely. Lewis Hamilton, okay, look, as long as I've been watching Lewis Hamilton, one thing that you never leverage against Lewis Hamilton is not dishonest. Like, even if he's trying not to tell you something, it's going to leak, it's going to drip feed. The truth permeates out of his pores. And I think as I read that article, I think he's desperately trying not to tell us something. He wants to toe the party line and be as enthusiastic about F1 still as he was back in the day, as he is about life after F1. But I think we can say it. I think we can say it fairly honestly now, that Lewis Hamilton at the age of 39, soon to turn 40 years old, is more excited about life after F1, about his extracurricular activities, than his life inside F1. It happens, right? This is what happens to all sports stars. 39 years old, latter stages for sure. Not going to have the peak of his powers conversation because we don't know. We can't understand or ascertain that yet categorically. Not in this car. But to say that Lewis isn't in the latter stages of his career, that F1 isn't a young man's game. Bearing in mind, again, I'll trot this stat out for the avoidance of doubt. In the entire history of Formula One, its 73, nearly 74-year history, only 4 drivers have ever won a world championship at the age that Lewis Hamilton will be next year or older, 40 years old. Go on and let's go through them for the avoidance of doubt. Giuseppe Farina, 1950, the very first one. Fangio was very old when he won his last one. I want to say in 57. I think Fangio was maybe about 44 years old when he won his last one. Jack Brabham in 66 and Graham Hill in 68. Those are the only 4 who have ever won a championship at 40 years old or older. And they were way back in the day. So when it's now, nobody's not going to tell me that this isn't a young man's game now. Okay, so Mansell was quite old, 38, 39 maybe when he won in 92. Mario Andretti was like 38, say, when he won his in 78, I think. No, why, you're far too kind. So I just don't know. Maybe he's not desperate. Does he need to be desperate to win? And maybe it's not as important to him as his fans. While that last stanza there, that last clause, maybe it's not as important to him as his fan. Listen, as you age and mature, your priorities change. Like I'm seeing that in real time. Like your priorities change, right? Are you prepared to buckle up and be? Are you prepared to die in that car? Are you prepared to die to win a record-breaking 8th? Because this is what these drivers go through, right? Senna in 94, Imola. Classic conversations with Dr. Sid. Like he wasn't sure, and you can't half-arse this thing, or any sport, F1 in particular, but you can't be half in, half out, right? Especially when the likes of Verstappen and Leclerc are, they're in this 100%. So it's a zero-sum game always, F1. And if you're not in, then by default, you must be out. This is techie. Oh my gosh. The god tier level blasphemy from Cameron here. You can hear the melancholy in my tone. Is that the conclusion of this soliloquy? If you're not in, then you must be out. Oh, Lewis. Maybe, go on, let's end this on a positive note. Maybe Lewis is so good that he doesn't need to be 100% in. Maybe, hypothetically, maybe he can beat Max Verstappen in equal machinery, even with his extracurricular activities, even at the age of 40 years old, so long as he's got a good car underneath him and has the minerals, the operational infrastructure around him, strategy et al. Maybe he can still do it. Maybe. But I tell you what I will say, finally on this. I don't know many sports people. Okay, so listen, I'm doing a statistical thing, right? But this is just anecdotal now. I don't know many sports personalities, much less F1 drivers, who get into that car, who buckle up, 6-point harness settings each and every single time, and have conflicting priorities, and then go on to win a championship, let alone in their 40s. I'm not sure I can give you too many examples. Does that mean to say that Lewis can't be the first? I mean, he's been the first he's broken all the other records before. So, like, he'd back against Sir Lewis Hamilton breaking yet another one. Not me, but if you're gonna extrapolate statistics, if past his prologue, then do you know what I mean? I don't know. I really, really want it. I sound like a Debbie Downer here. I know I do. I really, really want for this to transpire. I'd love to see Lewis break the record and grab an 8th before. Can you imagine? But the more I'm seeing, the more I'm hearing, and the more that I'm paying attention to precedent, if past is prologue, then I don't know. You don't half-arse F1. You're either in or you're out. No further questions, Your Honour.